Recording in progress.
Bore da pawb y croeso cynnes iawn i chi gyd, i cyfarfod cabinet bore yma. Cynghorydd Charlie McCreevy dwi I fi Arwenydd Cynor. Very warm welcome to you all to today's meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending on Zoom to choose your language of choice. If for those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the raised hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be able to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware, and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in the meeting to conduct themselves appropriately, be respectful to each other. That applies to members, officers, and anyone in the public gallery. So we'll turn to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. Okay, agenda item 2 is declarations of interest, code of local government conduct. Members are reminded that they must declare the existence and nature of their declared personal interest. I will get the ball rolling this one. I have a 16-year-old who, under agenda item, Home to School Transport 6 Part 1, may or may not be eligible for free transport to education. So I consider that to be a prejudicial interest. As such, I will be leaving and Deputy Leader Emily will take over for that item, members. So any other? Conor Grumway?
Yeah, I also have an interest in that item. I have a granddaughter that attends Aberconway and a grandson that attends Craydon, and we do transport them from time to time, so it will affect us financially. So therefore, it could affect us financially. So I should also declare an interest.
Okay, so also a prejudicial interest. So just ask our Monarch Officer Matt to come in at that stage, please.
Yeah, I think that's right. Leader, also just to say that there will be governors of schools. We won't ask everybody to declare that. We can note that for the minutes that will create a personal interest only because there are exemptions in the code that means that's not prejudicial in these circumstances. Leader.
Okay, Councillor Jeff.
Yes, I declare an interest personal and prejudicial. I've got 2 grandchildren actually involved in school transport, which refers to partly in one of the aspects here, special reasons for review of transport.
Okay, members, Councillor Penny. You throw your mic on, Penny, please.
Interest for Hammerbacken Community Hall, the exempt item.
Yeah, it's personal only, Leader. So the interest there is because of your position as a town councillor, and there is an exemption within the code that says that that will only be a personal interest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no other interest to declare, members? No, so move on to agenda item 3, which is urgent matters. I'm not aware we have any. Okay, thank you. So agenda item 4 is announcements by the leader. There's nothing for me at this stage. Agenda item 5, announcements by the Chief Executive.
No, nothing for me, Leader.
Okay, so we'll move on to the first substantive item, which is education portfolio, to provide members with feedback on the home to school transport consultation and share recommendation amendments to the home to school transport policy pages 4 to 159. So as I've declared a personal interest, I'll hand over to my Deputy Leader, Emily. Thank you.
Thanks, Aidan. We'll just wait a minute for everyone to leave the chamber. Okay, so yeah, agenda item 6, as the leaders just said, to provide members with feedback on home to school transport consultation and share recommendation amendment to the home to school transport policy pages 4 to 159. I'll just hand over to Cabinet Member for Education, Julie.
Thank you. Okay, so we've had discussions around this for some time. Obviously, this has gone out to consultation, and before you today are recommendations. It's acknowledged that on a national and regional and local level, home transport is one of the fastest growing costs in a local authority's annual budget. Since 2018-19, the costs have increased by almost £3 million. And now the overall budget for 24-25 in Conway's home to school transport is just under £7.5 million. As a result, you'll recall that we approved as a cabinet that a review of the home to school transport policy be undertaken. Given the funding gap that we found ourselves in faced by the council and the high cost of delivering the discretionary services, despite their worth, it is potentially unaffordable in light of the council's overall budget constraints. So today you have in your agenda pack, along with the committee report, 9 documents and reports detailing information on home to school transport. Every local authority has their own individual home to school transport policy that helps assess learner eligibility. In Conway, we are no different, and current home to school transport policy is available for all to see on our website. Excuse me. The Learner Travel Wales Measure Act of 2008 sets out the legal framework specifically related to travel and transport provision for learners travelling from home to schools in Wales. Our policy is based on that legal measure. Simplistically, the policy can be broken down into 2 separate areas. So we have the statutory and we have the discretionary home to school transport. As well as the duty to provide transport to some pupils, a local authority has discretionary powers to provide home to school transport for other learners. A local authority does not have to use their discretionary powers to provide free or assisted travel. And at the end of last year, as I said, Cabinet asked officers to carry out a consultation to look further into discretionary transport. Before looking at discretionary transport, I was going to mention a presentation, but I think the majority of us will have seen the presentation that was put to education scrutiny. So, and because of the discussions we've had for so long around this area, I don't feel it's necessary to play that presentation again today. So there are 8 areas of discretionary transport. The report recommends changes to 6 of these areas, 4 of which are recommended changes to our policy. The recommendation states that there should be no change to the transport to Welsh medium schools over the statutory distance when not the nearest school. And there should be no change to the transport for Gypsy Roma traveller children within the statutory distance. The first change relates to transport for learners who change address during the exam years of their education so that they can remain at the same school. It is recommended that this is removed from the policy. The second change is to transport to denominational schools over the statutory distance. It is recommended that the policy is amended so that evidence of faith can be requested. And John and Estelle are here if anybody wants to understand a little bit further around that. But that's something that schools typically do anyway, faith schools. So this is something that happens that we can build upon in terms of the transport element. The third recommended change to the policy is to the provision of transport to 2 residences where parents live separately. So it is recommended that the policy is amended to restrict transport to residences only within Conway County. The fourth recommendation is to the post-16 transport. It is recommended that the policy is amended to provide post-16 transport to the nearest educational establishment, the nearest or catchment secondary school, Welsh medium school, or the nearest further education college over the statutory distance. The final recommendation relates to transport for pupils with medical conditions or additional learning needs, or learners who have school transport for other specific reasons. It is recommended that the home to school transport policy does not change, but operationally that members, that members support the proposal to increase capacity within the team to work with learners, their families, the school and the transport services to promote independent travel to reduce costs. Details of all of this all of these recommendations can be seen in appendices 3A and 3B of your agenda pack. There is a lot of detail to digest with this report and information in your agenda pack, including the consultation feedback. I would, however, like to highlight the importance of the equality impact assessment in line with our recommendations, and for you to consider the data in the document with any questions or proposals you may wish to ask or put forward. And lastly, I think it's important that we thank everybody who was involved in the consultation. We had over 1,000 responses, which I think in terms of consultation, for me, that's one of the highest ones that I've seen, certainly in terms of education. And this is a start. This is a start. This is where we're at currently. You know, I think it's really important, and I've said this before, that we need to implement things that we can do, and this is achievable where we stand currently. And you know, as I said, hopefully increasing the capacity within the department means that we look at all of discretionary transport, whether that's people who are just coming along to look at the offer of discretionary transport, and where possible that we encourage families and young people to make that independent travel, and to use perhaps facilities that are, or services that are already available, whether it's public transport or making their own way to schools. Any money that comes from this budget obviously comes from the council, wider the council budget, which, as I mentioned before, is in a very precarious position, and obviously has an impact across whether that's education services, schools, or like I said, the wider council. So we have to look at every area that we can make a change, and it may just be that people find a way of doing things differently. Those who may have historically had discretionary transport, that they find ways of perhaps doing that for themselves. So I think this is just a whole change. It's a whole shift, and this is the beginning of that. And we'll continue to look at all those areas and all those opportunities to perhaps help people to find alternative ways of doing it. But I'm happy to propose the recommendations. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Julie. It is a really sensitive one, this, isn't it? It's always difficult when we've been given things in the past and we're looking to change them. And you know, I'm really pleased with the report that we've got more work to be done on it, and to have a look to see what else can be done. I must say, I've spoken to a couple of people about this, and because they were equally as frustrated about the school budgets, and kind of related it to, well, yes, but if we're taking away from one budget, you know, it means that there is more money to spend on other budgets. And you know, their responses are quite positive, going, well, you know, if we can safeguard school budgets, that's a good thing. So it is you know, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for anyone. No one wants to be here cutting things in general, not just on this report. But it is really about, you know, there's a certain pot of money, and we've got to make it. We've got to spread it around all the services we want. So yeah, has anyone got any comments or questions on this? Councillor Cheryl, you're online.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, thanks to Councillor Julie and the team for this report. It's not been an easy one. 2 questions, please. Just to absolutely make sure children looked after when we talk about moving addresses. Just want to be really, really clear that will be ring fenced, that there will be no detriment to them with that. And also a question that's cropped up since this was last debated in education, dangerous routes to schools. I see that ERF has suddenly reclassified the route from Llysfine to Ysgol Brynelion. Is that process now also running alongside this process? Are we now looking again at reclassifying dangerous routes to school? If I could ask that, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cheryl. I think Councillor Julie's going to take the first question.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cheryl. Yes, in terms of children looked after, then there will be no impact on those, excuse me, young people. That's not part of this process. Thanks.
Thank you. And just on your second part, yeah, the hazardous routes, have been and will continue to be looked at moving forward, but that's not part of this report today that's going through. So there's definitely going to be a time to debate. I can't see you on the screen, so I feel like I'm just talking to the air. Sorry, Councillor Cheryl. But yes, there will be time to debate that, absolutely. But it's not in this report that's come for us today. Councillor Paul, I think you've got a question.
Yes, thank you for the report. My question is, what is the indicative total cost of these cuts and savings? And will they then be available, in a sense, those indicative costs for discussion in the budget working groups going forward?
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Paul. In your appendices 3A and 3B, there are indicative costs with regards to the proposed savings because of these. But of course, we'll be monitoring them closely throughout the following year when they are implemented, actually in September 2025, these changes. So we'll be looking at them closely. However, on the independent travel for the ALN learners and stuff, we're hoping to increase capacity within the team sooner rather than later. So we're hoping to see some of those works and some of those costs coming through sooner rather than later. But we'll be able to put more accurate indicative costs in time when we implement these changes within the school policy.
Thank you. Can I just drill down a bit more? Gareth Evans, the head of finance, wrote to me and said in a full year, the figure he was quoting to me was 288,000. Now, obviously, in the first year, 2025-26, we will only get 2/3 of those savings because it's a 3-term year. So I do think we need, if you like, the hard data on this, and I appreciate there's a lot of work involved in tying that down, but we do need to have this hard data, you know, certainly by Christmas time, I would say, for the budget setting process.
Thanks, Councillor Paul. Is there any more questions before we move on to the recommendations? Nope. Oh, Councillor Aaron.
Yeah, diolch. Just sydyn iawn.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to say thank you for the to the 1,000 people who have participated in the consultation, showing how important this service is. It's a challenging time for us as a council, and we have to look at everything, and I'm happy to second the recommendations by Councillor Julie. Thank you.
Councillor Aaron. So Councillor Julie's proposed, Councillor Aaron has seconded. Should we move to the vote? The recommendations are, Julie has gone through them one by one, so I'm not going to repeat them, but they are on page 5 on 2.2. So can we all show if we're in favour, please?
If we can just confirm, Chair, also 2.3 on page 6.
Sorry, 2.3 on page 6 as well. So move to vote. Everyone in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Can we go and grab the rest of the team?
Okay, diolch Emily. So we'll move on to agenda item 6, part 2, which is Conway's Welsh and Education Strategic Plan Annual Review Report. That's on pages 160 to 205. Okay, Adam? Julie, sorry. Apologies. Julie, Councillor Julie.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so the Conway Welsh and Education Strategic Plan Annual Review Report 23-24. The report provides an overview of progress made against the targets set out in the Conway WESP, the Welsh and Education Strategic Plan, action plan detailing achievements to date and the next steps. Excuse me. In line with the mandatory requirements, Conway's WESP's annual review 23-24 is to be published, submitted to the Welsh Government July 2024. I'm just going to go through some of the outcomes and some of the actions that we have against those, Leader. I won't go through the whole report. Forgive me. I seem to always have a bad throat when I come to Cabinet. You will find the whole review from pages 167 onwards, but I will go through, as I said, some of the actions and some of the outcomes and the actions. So we have a number of outcomes as part of the WESP. So outcome 1, that more nursery age children and 3-year-olds receive their education through the medium of Welsh. The action, we have closer working with third-party stakeholders such as marketing Welsh language education and the benefits of bilingualism and communication with parents across all sectors, planning and development of Welsh language in our settings, and we analyse the findings of the childcare sufficiency assessment. Outcome 2 is around more reception age children and 5-year-olds receiving their education in Cymraeg. Outcome 3, more children continue to improve their Welsh language skills when transferring from one stage of statutory education to another, so transitioning typically from primary to secondary. Outcome 5, more opportunities for learners to use excuse me, the Welsh in different contexts within schools. Some of the actions, completing the Welsh in education language policy and following order of the democratic process. Formation of an agreed bespoke support package in terms of training, resources, workforce skills, development to support all schools' linguistic journey. I think we've mentioned that numerous times, the importance of ensuring that we have the workforce. Conway to play leading role in the Welsh Government National Network on School Categorisation, continue with latecomer immersion provision for Welsh medium education, and I've seen that firsthand. At Dyffryn Conway, I've seen an American pupil who's come over and within 12 months they're speaking fluent Welsh, and it's absolutely amazing to see. Conway share national changes on Siatr Iaith guidelines for each sector, including the verification process. Conway contributing through the national network, a network which has been shared in September 23 for further guidelines will be launched for the Eisteddfod 2024, and ensure secondary, special and referral units establish Siatr Iaith in order to continue to promote the Welsh ethos, identity and culture from the primary sector, and an increase in the provision of Welsh medium education for pupils with ALN in accordance with the duties imposed by the ALN Education Tribunal Act 2018. Excuse me, and outcome 7, to increase the number of teaching staff able to teach Welsh as a subject in addition to teaching through the medium of Welsh. It's really important that the Welsh is increased. I mean, we're seeing fantastic in primaries, the numbers are increasing. You'll see in the report the percentages, we're hitting or above target on all of our plans, and we want to see that as well across all of our secondary schools, as opposed to just having the Welsh provision. I think it's important, and certainly from the discussions that I'm having with our Welsh schools, and I know the team and John's online, and Claire's there as well. The team are working really well with the secondary schools so that we increase that provision, so that, like you see in primary schools where teachers will use Welsh language if they have it in other subjects, it would be really great to start to see that across our secondaries. And I know certainly from a parental perspective, I'd love to see more of that. So these are all the things that they're doing So in terms of next steps to ensure that the WESP is fully incorporated across all our services and schools, and that the local authority is engaged with the agenda around the Welsh language, which we know we are, and to ensure full utilisation of the Conway Council website and social media channels to promote Welsh medium education and the advantages of bilingualism, which are so strong, it's so positive. You know, everything that we see in terms of data shows that a bilingual child is actually so much more able to learn, whether that's an additional language or any subject, because it gives them a much better platform for learning. So in terms of the recommendation, so you will find on page 160, 2.1, that members note and approve the content of the Conway WESP Action Plan, and 2.2, that members continue to support and promote the Conway WESP Action Plan and the work of all key stakeholders. And if you have any questions, as I said, John and Claire are there online, but I'm happy to move that. Thank you, Leader.
Diolch, Julie. I'll open up to any questions, observations. Cynghorydd Aaron.
Ia, diolch. Ia, dwi jyst isio deud gair o ddiolch I...
Yes, I just want to say thank you to John and Claire on the screen and Julie here for their work, and Delith, of course, for their work on this plan and their work in this area. I think we have an ambitious plan here with a clear aim to increase the number of Welsh medium schools in the county and increasing the number of pupils receiving Welsh medium education. Unfortunately, Welsh language is still a lottery. I'm one of the fortunate ones that was brought up in Welsh. It shouldn't have to be a lottery. Everyone should be able to leave secondary school speaking English and Welsh confidently. So I just wanted to say thank you to the officers, and thank you also to the teachers and head teachers leading this area. And I'm happy to second the recommendations.
Yeah, Councillor Aaron just made comment there that he came from Welsh-speaking family. I came from an English-speaking family and learnt Welsh, and it has helped me immensely throughout my professional career, I have to say. You know, we have so many parents out there now in our communities who want to learn Welsh, and the best way to do it is for children and parents to learn together. So I just want to say thank you very much for this excellent report. Thank you.
Okay, diolch Liz. Councillor Louise, our Welsh learner chaplain.
Dwi'n hapus iawn a adroddiad.
I'm very happy with the report. I agree with Aaron. I will now speak in English.
I'm happy with the report and I agree with Aaron, but I'll do the rest in English. We're making really good progress, certainly in the school that I'm involved with as Chair of Governors, to try and have the Welsh language as a very positive influence in children's lives. And from learning the language myself, I've become passionate and also quite pedantic about making sure I speak it correctly, and that I'm really enjoying learning this language, and that's why I take my headphones off to try and understand what you're saying rather than listening to the English. But the last census we had for Wales showed a decline in people saying that they were Welsh speaking, and I think we need to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to learn Welsh in a very positive environment. So since I've started learning the language, I've found the vast majority of people are really helpful with me, and they will, siaradwch araf, they will speak slowly and allow me to learn the language. But that isn't always the case. And I think that we've got to be people like me, dare I say, incomer, coming into this country and living here and bringing my children up here. There needs to be positivity all the time around the language to encourage me. I don't have to become fluent. I've started this journey. I would like to become fluent, but we've talked about the F word. Don't say the F word. You can just learn a couple of words. You can go into a cafe and you can order your cup of tea and your cachen or your teisan, depending on which part of Wales you're from, and you can come out and that you have a fluent conversation. So there's this worry with people learning the language that once they start, they have to finish and be fluent. And I think that's the same with children. We do have primary schools where in year 6, children are literally still saying gai mynd I toilet os gwelwch yn dda, and that's not good enough. And as I say, I'm chair of a school where we're looking at really improving the Welsh on a daily basis. And in terms of what Aaron said, it is a lottery. The majority of children leaving John Bright's, my school in my town, will not siarad Cymraeg fluently, and they will be denied access to a number of very well-paid council jobs. They will not be able to apply for them because they dim siarad Cymraeg. And what will they do? They will leave and head over the border to go for jobs where they don't have to speak the language, and that is fundamentally wrong. So we have to get that right. We have to be more, perhaps the way that we apply for jobs here has to be that, yes, you know, you need to be able to learn and that's in your contract, but we cannot deny some of the fantastic roles in public services to a lot of our children from Llandudno because they don't speak the language. So yeah, let's get them speaking it. Let's push it through primary schools. Let's get them leaving year 6. There's no reason why every child in Llandudno leaving year 6 shouldn't be fluent in Welsh, certainly speaking fluent in Welsh, maybe not knowing all the mutations. So really supportive of the direction we're going, but always conscious, don't let those children who don't speak Welsh when they leave John Bright's, please don't leave them behind. Thank you.
Diolch, Louise, and thanks for all the work you put in your role. I do agree with a lot of your arguments. I do think we have moved our position in terms of the level of Welsh Essential. So the chief executive, it wasn't fluent. It was level 5, which is way beyond my level. But you know, there is a recognition that there are roles where people can come in with a desire to learn the language and an expectation to think that they can take the language on. I absolutely take your part that people benefit from learning any level of Welsh. On a personal level, being able to pronounce sort of local towns properly, understanding the names of those towns, what it actually means, being able to order a drink and a coffee and stuff, as you say, I found that really beneficial. It is outside your comfort zone a little bit sometimes, and it is difficult, especially when it's been videoed and live cast. And it is much harder when you're old. I would really encourage any members. My local school, Ysgol Glan Morfa in Abergala, 90% of the children in that school are from English-speaking backgrounds, and when you see those children don't learn Welsh, they just imbibe it. It's just the easiest thing in the world for them, and you see how happy they are and how properly bilingual they are. They're confident, equally confident in both languages is really inspirational. And I think if I had seen that, trying to think now, 16, 17, 18 years ago with my own children, I think I would have been more inclined to put them into the Welsh medium. So I think it's something we can do better is promote that. But I absolutely think for all our schools, I'm a governor in Emerson Buin, and they're really keen to improve the Welsh that they do on a day-to-day basis. So there is that ability to speak Welsh at whatever level you can attain, rather than it being a sort of binary choice when you speak Welsh, you don't speak Welsh. So I do support that, but I do think it is something we have taken on board here, but we need to continue to do that to support people who are making the effort, essentially. I've got Councillor Cromwell.
Diolch Arwyn, a diolch am yr adroddiad.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the report. I appreciate the work that's being done to ensure that more young people speak Welsh. The only thing I think there are 2 special schools to learn Welsh. The rest of the secondary schools have Welsh as second language. That creates issues for the children attending. I've had one of my children going to a Welsh medium secondary school and another to a bilingual school, and language is taught as secondary and is of a lower standard. You would say that children attending Welsh as second language school, that you should leave Welsh by the gate because it's being treated as an add-on, and Welsh needs to be strengthened in all secondary schools to teach through the medium of Welsh. Having 2 secondary schools through the medium of Welsh in the county is not enough. That learners should be teaching to the same standard.
Diolch. Yeah, I just want to respond to Councillor Louise. I agree in some part, and I'm really glad that you're learning Welsh and pob lwc. The Welsh language does not belong to me more than it belongs to you. It belongs to all of us. I appreciate this part isn't to do with the report in front of us, but just on the jobs bit. The Welsh language is a skill. You can acquire it. You know, that's why it is part of some job descriptions. And the point that you've made is exactly the reason why we need to increase the number of Welsh medium schools in Conwy. No child should leave our education system not confident in both Welsh and English. Diolch.
Okay, members, thank you for a good debate. I think it shows we're all passionate about it. Maybe we come from slightly different angles on a few issues, but it is something that we're both proud of and keen to, and as always, look to improve. So we've had a proposer, Councillor Julie, and we've had a seconder, Conor Dharon. Can members show their in favour of accepting the recommendations? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next agenda. There is actually a bit of a mistake in the agenda on the pack, in that there is no agenda item 7, which is audit policy and performance portfolio. So without further ado, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which sits in the culture, governance and IT portfolio. First part is the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000 policy review. You'll find that report on pages 206 to 276.
Diolch. A mi fydd e'n cyflwyno'r adroddiad
Thank
yma.
you. I will be presenting this report in Welsh.
O dan deddf rheoliddio pwera.
Under the obligations of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, the Council has to prepare policy in accordance to preparing policy within the Act. The Council also has to review and revise the policy when doing that. A review of the policy concluded there is a need for sections to be added to the policy in respect of storage and destruction of documents, and to include social media policy. The policy was last reviewed in 2019 following an audit by the Investigatory Powers Commissioner. Recommendations were made in respect of revisions to the policy. The additions required to be made are to include a specific RIPA social policy media policy and a section on storage and destruction of documents. The revised sections on the RIPA social media policy are included in the report. I would like to note that the RIPA authorisations are very rare here in Conwy, and we have not authorised surveillance since 2013. However, relevant officers are due to attend updated training, and the intention is to provide managers with internal training. The recommendations then, 2.1, that the Cabinet approves and adopts the revised regulations policy, and 2.2, that the Cabinet delegates any minor updates and amendments in future to the Head of Law and Governance in consultation with their portfolio holder. I will propose that we accept these recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, Joel, Aaron, again, members, any questions, comments or observations? North, Chris?
Yeah, I'd just like to second Councillor Aaron, and also I think we've got to realise that minor amendments, there has to be a situation, a system in place so that minor amendments don't have to come to Cabinet, and these can be, I'm sure, delegated to the Head of Legal and Governance, and also in consultation, or at least the Cabinet, the relevant Cabinet member knows what minor alterations are taking place. I fully support it, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Yeah, members, there's no other questions or observations. We've had a proposer and a seconder. Can we take this to the vote? Can members show they're in favour of accepting the recommendations? Okay, that's carried. So we'll move on to the next part of the report, which is Venue Cymru levelling up. That's in an appendix, members, because the report wasn't available when the original agenda was published. Alan, we back to you.
Diolch. I'm going to give a brief introduction before handing over to Sarah Acup, Head of Economy and Culture Service, to discuss in greater detail the proposed plans. As members know, the UK government recently announced a 10 million investment for Venue Cymru through the Levelling Up programme. The funding is subject to an acceptable business case being submitted by Conwy. The investment is based on a levelling up application that was submitted in 2022 for project works valued at 14.5 million. We now need to undertake redevelopment of our proposals to fit within this new revised funding envelope. In addition, this funding provides us with an opportunity to safeguard and modernise our area library by moving it into Venue Cymru. This would deliver a modern ground floor library with greatly improved accessibility and enhanced services for residents. We also propose to move the Tourist Information Service for Llandudno into Venue Cymru to protect the service and enhance the offer both to visitors and local artisans who sell their work through the TICs. The proposals are 2.1, that Cabinet supports the broad proposals for the Venue Cymru Futures project, and 2.2, that Cabinet approve a public consultation regarding the possibility of moving the area library into Venue Cymru. I'm happy to propose that we accept these proposals. However, I will first pass over to Sarah Acup.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Sarah, over to you.
Diolch, Councillor Aaron. As Councillor Aaron has just mentioned, on the 6th of March this year, the UK government announced a £10 million investment into Venue Cymru, which was based on an earlier levelling up bid that we submitted nearly 2 years ago now. That project was to develop and protect Venue Cymru, to create a culture hub hosting local creative practitioners in enhanced spaces and delivering a vibrant cultural space for customers and professionals alike. And that was including film industry professionals, which we've been working alongside a company to potentially deliver a film studio in Kinmel Bay. And also my colleague Adrian behind me has been working very closely with film industry to encourage more filming to come into the area. So bringing together all our cultural activities and the very many cultural practitioners that we work with at the moment throughout the county, not only at Venue Cymru, but in our libraries and in our very many spaces across the county. So that involved an extension of Venue Cymru, extending out from the box office area out into the car park and going up on the ground floor, first floor and second floor was the vision. And also the bid included essential work on the technical equipment of Venue Cymru, much of which is 30 years old. So you can imagine it hanging on by a thread at the moment and is also very expensive in terms of the impact on the environment and the cost for both staff and for utilities to keep the slightly antiquated equipment running. And also the long overdue replacement of the auditorium seating, which has been in place for about 20 years now. It's had lots of people sitting on it and it really does need replacing. As Councillor Aaron mentioned, the £10 million funding is subject to a business case being accepted by UK government, and we are working on that at the moment, pulling that together, and that is the subject of this report today. We are also looking to find additional funding because of that gap in funding. We're revising the project, but we're also trying to identify other pots so that we can achieve as much as possible for the area. And we have just been offered £200,000 from the Arts Council of Wales capital pot, which was, I think, 1.2 million for the whole of Wales. So we were really pleased to get that. And that money will be focused on our lighting equipment and is match funding to go with the UK government investment. Obviously, things slowed down during the election period. We had to stop working on the project, so we're full steam ahead now, trying to pull this all together. And we are working on the basis that funding will be approved in due course, but obviously we've got everything firmly crossed for that. We will need to submit a good business case with a really good rationale for what we're doing and an exciting project to gain the funding. So the funding offer has given us an opportunity to consider how we can use this Venue
Venue Cymru cultural hub that I was talking about in a way that will help to protect our services against the background of continuing economic difficulty. And also, really importantly, how can we improve services for our customers? We've identified some issues in the library in Llandudno that we believe this project can address, and they were things that have been bubbling along for a while. So we currently have to pay for the use of the building. It's not our building, and we only use one floor within that building. So there are other tenants in the building. And whilst we do recognise the fact that the library is a Carnegie building, and so it is historically interesting, the building is old and has numerous issues to contend with. The library is located on the first floor, which is not ideal for access. We have had several times when the lifts have all been out of order. So anybody with a pram or with mobility issues have struggled, and the staff have had to put in a doorbell downstairs so that if somebody can't actually get up to use the library, they ring the bell, the staff go down and they help them with whatever they need on the ground floor. The lack of immediately available parking in busy times can be a disincentive to library users, particularly blue badge users, where there's not very many spaces. There are some within the car park, but that involves going all the way downstairs, across and back up again. And the library, we completely acknowledge the library does bring footfall into the town, but we think there's a bit of a disconnect with the retail offer, and that many of those people using the library are not going into town to spend money in the retail areas. They're going into town to use the library. So as such, we're putting forward a proposal to move the library into the extended foyer areas of Venue Cymru. So it'll be the existing ground floor foyer area where the box office and the cafe bar is, will be completely redesigned and extended to accommodate the cafe bar, the library, TIC staff that I'll come on to, and a community stage, hopefully, and also community spaces and workspaces where people can come and hot desk. So lots of activity, a really lovely, vibrant space. So the library will be on the ground floor, as I've just mentioned. That would be a real improvement. Closer to the main population area of Llandudno, and also closer to both the high school and our largest local primary school. The site's well serviced by a large car park, which includes accessible bays and EV charging. And there will also be, we have at the moment 2 short stay spaces. We would probably extend that back to the 4 spaces that we used to have. And there is plentiful free parking nearby. The building's next door to the swimming centre, so providing easy access to our facilities for local families to link those 2 activities. And I think really importantly, it would provide an opportunity to extend customer access through the opening times of the library. So the library staff would move over with the same hours that they have at the moment, and members will be aware that we have just recently carried out a consultation on opening hours because we are struggling with our finances, as you'll all be aware. Moving the library into Venue Cymru would mean that customers could access to drop off and check out their books whenever the Venue Cymru building is open. So if somebody was coming in and needed the support of one of our library team, who are incredibly important, very, very busy when they're working with lots of people coming in for support for all sorts of things, they will still be there within the same hours that we have at the moment, but there will be this extension of access for self-service. Venue Cymru also has a changing room space, so that's for adults who need a bed and a toileting facilities within the building, and we have a number of accessible toilets. So it's an opportunity to provide modern facilities, and this will follow on from our success in Conway and Llanrwst, where we have upgraded our libraries and moved them into new buildings. Different situations there, but they have been very, very well received. Llandudno Library hasn't had investment for a number of years. It's 14 years since that investment was, the last major investment was undertaken. Some of the equipment that was bought at that stage would be able to be moved, but it would be great to be able to provide a lovely modern facility. Also very important is that co-location will enable teams to work together to add value. For example, linking theatre shows to maybe Reading Friends, or the library AMSA Story, for example, to Holiday Lego Cafe, creating this real vibrant, welcoming space for both locals and visitors. And it would certainly open up funding channels for us in terms of trusts and foundations and grants to deliver more of those sorts of activities by being co-located. Library users would also have access to a cafe on site. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we are paying a lease at the moment, and we don't have full control of that building because it's not our own building. So that would definitely help with efficiencies that we're going to have to find in the coming years. So we're also looking at co-locating the Tourist Information Service within Venue Cymru to safeguard the service. You'll be aware that at the moment, many local authorities have already closed their tourist information centres or are looking to close them as a non-statutory service. Obviously, tourism is incredibly important to our area, so we are trying to find ways to make sure that we can safeguard this important service for our area. So whilst the service would move from the town centre, it would be located in a cultural and tourism focused building. Venue Cymru has a footfall of over 300,000 people per year. Many of those people are from outside of the area, so instantly we can make sure that we are selling and sharing all the many wonderful things that they can do in Conway County. Again, visitors would be able to use the on-site car park and use the cafe to linger in the building while staff help with inquiries. Marketing opportunities for our own activities, theatre tickets, events, leisure, etc. will be more joined up in the new location, and also the more extended marketing of the attractions in the area. We would train all frontline staff in basic tourist information to support the work of the professional tourist information team. So again, it's that extension of access to information. Creative practitioners would be able to use the building to both not only make their work in the new spaces in the, as I mentioned earlier, the studios and making areas that we would have, but they would also then be able to sell them from the outlet within the building, and also be running workshops and engagement activities that we already do very much around the county. We would continue to do that around the county, but it brings everything together in a really lovely hub. So the move to Venue Cymru would provide an opportunity as well for us to rethink how we work and consider moving away from, at the moment, we have a very traditional retail outlet staff behind a desk. So it might be, for example, that tourism information staff would be floor workers who could sit with the customers in the cafe or on the hot desking spaces to deal with their inquiries. It's that sort of thing that we would be looking at, and there's no foregone conclusion to that, but it would certainly give us an opportunity to consider how we could deliver a modern service in our own building. We are very aware of the need for information within the town centre. So as part of the work, we'd be looking to deliver some kind of digital tourist information in the town that would signpost people who wanted additional information down to Venue Cymru. We're also, as I mentioned, looking at technical upgrades to the theatre and the auditorium upgrade. So the auditorium upgrade would involve removing the retractable seating that is not usable at the moment, and has not been used, and we do not have a need for using it because of the previous extensions. So that would hopefully create a solid flooring that would enable us to use the under seat area at the moment, which is basically wasted space at the moment. The air handling in the auditorium is frequently complained about. Replacing the seating gives us an opportunity to deal with that. That's all linked in together, and it's something theatres often do. So you reverse the airflow to supply at low level under the seats. It's not something we could do at the moment without this work. There would be a reconfiguration of the seating, so we have been looking at that as well, and we would provide more information on that as we move forwards with it. And then the technical modernisation, helping to reduce the carbon footprint of the building, reduce staff time, and encourage return visits by promoters due to efficient and modern equipment, and making sure that we have what our high-profile promoters and touring companies are looking for within the building. So stage lighting, audio-visual, loose equipment, and also the infrastructure, upgrading the smoke vents and automation of the pit lift, which again has not been touched for 30 years. Alongside these elements that I've mentioned to you, we've also been having conversations with Coleg Llandrillo Menai. They're very, very keen to be involved and to deliver for their learners out of this new improved facility. And I'm also having conversations with colleagues in health about how we could use this co-location to deliver really good health and well-being outcomes for our local population. So our next step, if members approve the recommendations today, would be to go out to consultation regarding the library. And you do have a draft consultation document before you. We have added a couple of questions in there around what people think their spend if their spend in town would be impacted, whether it would be less or more or no difference. And we're open to any of the questions for that. And we are also going to go out to meet with key groups to discuss the proposals and, for example, our local primary schools we've been in touch with already to discuss with them. So there will be a period of consultation. We're expecting things to go very, very quickly. Should the government approve the business plan, hopefully they will. The deadline for spend at the moment is March 2026, but because of the delays due to the election period and the fact that this was a very late additional to the levelling up funding that the government had allocated, we have been having discussions with them about extending that, because obviously that's a very, very tight timescale to get all this together, and we want to make sure that we spend the money wisely and fully to the benefit of our communities. So as soon as we have submitted the proposals to the government, prior to the election, it would have been probably 3 to 4 weeks. It now has to go back to ministers, so there will be a period while we're waiting for that. And we will then be working during that period to make sure that we're in a really good place to move quickly once we have approvals, including all of our consultations actually getting underway as soon as we have your approval, if that is the case today. Diolch. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So just for clarity, obviously there was an announcement made by the previous government, a surprise announcement, I think, in the budget that there would be up to £10 million available for Venue Cymru. Obviously, we've had a new administration come in now. That money's not guaranteed, but we have to put a business case in that they will support. I think it was that's correct, isn't it? That we have to make a credible business case.
Yeah, that's correct. We do have to. We had to supply the business case previously anyway, but it now will need to go to ministers for sign off.
And I think it was clear from the levelling up, they talked about supporting theatres and enterprise to make them more sustainable. So part of this work is making the best use of that building and making its long-term future sustainable. We were in a budgetary situation where we've made cuts way in excess of £20 million over the last 2 years. We've had 2 really high council tax raises at 10%. We're facing a budget deficit in the next year of £18 million. We've already had a consultation on dropping library hours by 25%. So the situation facing us is extremely worrying. Our ability to deliver services that are really important to our residents moving forward is going to be really, really hampered. Our ability to maintain that theatre, maintain the support it offers to the local economy in Llandudno is under threat if we don't get this money to renovate it, and it puts about £30 million into the economy. There will be concerns about some of these plans, but I just ask members from a financial point of view, we're not in a zone where we can necessarily do what we want, what we'd absolutely want. We're in a zone where we have to do what we can afford, and that all has to be balanced around about sustainability, long-term plans, and how we protect these services. So there will be elements that people don't like, but we are in a really, really difficult situation. The information government, Welsh government, UK government is that's not going to change in the immediate short term. So these non-statutory services are under threat, and we have to do everything we can to try and protect them as best we can. So clearly there's going to be a lot of questions from members. Unfortunately, because of the time involved, this couldn't come to scrutiny. It had to come straight here. So Louise, you had your light on first. I'll open it up to you.
Thanks, Leader. And firstly, it's fantastic that this money's been made available, and I'd love to see investment in Venue Cymru. So, and that's really essential for the town. So that's great. I've got a few questions around the original bid, 14.5 million, the Creative Hub. Why wasn't the move of the library and the TIC included in that bid originally? Can I ask that, please?
Yeah, we had to pull that bid together really very, very quickly. So we knew at the time that there were the things that I mentioned, the serious issues with our technical equipment and our seating. And we knew that we wanted to create this cultural hub, but it was pulled together in the space of probably about 4 weeks, because the timing had shifted with the levelling up bids, and we were told there's probably not going to be another one. So we didn't have proper time to really work out and consider. Having started that process, it gave us a real opportunity to start thinking, actually, what can we do? What can we do really well? So it was disappointing not to get the money at the time, but it's actually given us a chance to progress plans and really think about what's the best way to spend that money for our communities.
Can I ask another question? Okay, thanks for that. So going on to moving from the town centre, and obviously the worry for local members, as you'd imagine, is the removal of the footfall. And you talked about the disconnect between people coming to the library and then not going and spending money in the town centre. Is that anecdotal? Because I would suggest anecdotally it's the other way around. And within the business case, will you be required to put an economic impact assessment of the impact of moving the library from the town centre? Do you think you'd be required to do that, and is that a good thing to do?
We, as I've mentioned, we have added a question to the questionnaire regarding what people think it would make a difference to them. So it is anecdotal at the moment, and we will see what we get back from that. And obviously we're looking for people to respond to that questionnaire who use the library, but also the very many people who do not use the library, to find out, would it make a difference? Would they be more inclined to use the library in the new space? I'm sorry, the second bit of the question's just gone. Oh, yes. The other thing I was going to say is I want to be really, really clear that we are not talking about closing the library. We are talking about moving it slightly down the road. So it does take it away from the centre of Mostyn Street, the centre of our high street in Llandudno, but it is still very much within Llandudno town. We also have a whole range of shops and retail in Craigerdon, and we have the shopping centres that have moved along. So it extends the use of that whole stretch, really. So I just need to be very, very clear. We are not talking about closing the library or moving it out, which I know is not your question, but I know some people have been fearful that that's what we're mentioning. It's absolutely not that.
Final question. So with the consultation, and particularly with what Charlie said about the financial security of the TIC in the library, is there any point to the consultation? Everyone hates a consultation where the decision's been made. So if it's overwhelmingly in favour of keeping it in the town centre, will you think about that? Is there any point in a consultation?
I think there's always point in a consultation, Louise. We need to see what people think. We need to try and win the argument, because people will dislike a lot of the aspects of this. So it's up to us to try and point out that some things are not statutory. So TIC isn't statutory. And if the alternative is it going, well, what would you prefer to do? These are the difficult decisions we have to balance. There's no guarantee we'll get the funding from UK government. We've got to make a good business case that they will want to support. And that's challenging in the current ages, because for everything we do, there's pros and cons, and it's just trying to navigate your way to the best possible solution, the best possible outcome. But there's no such thing as perfect in this job, as you know from holding the portfolio. I've got Councillor Chris, but I'm more than happy to take as many questions as people want, because I'm conscious that we didn't have time to bring this through scrutiny, so don't feel inhibited about your questions. I've got Councillor Chris, Harry online, and then Nigel.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Sarah, and all the teams that have worked on this. I see Sharon sitting there as well, and I really welcome that there's going to be the integration of several of our teams from Venue Cymru and events and libraries and information in economic development coming together on this. So it's going to be a really great piece of combined working, and I look forward to see the plans for the extended redesigned foyer area. The question I've got for you is there will be a large number of people who will not want the library moved from Mostyn Street. And there's two things that immediately pop up in my mind. One is we must have lease obligations and things to Mostyn Estates. I don't know whether, you know, any comment can be made on those because this is a public meeting and perhaps that is something for that would have to be exempt. But I'd just like to ask the Chief Exec about that. And the other thing is the body of people that won't want it moved from that area will probably suggest that the town hall is used, which is our building. So if we were to argue, oh, well, we want to make savings by using a building that's ours, they may come up with that alternative. So just those two questions.
I'll introduce Chief Exec.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. I'll respond to the first part. In terms of the lease obligations, you know, they are publicly registered leases, so there's no issue about discussing. So the length of those leases, they come to an end in 2026. So in terms of timing, you know, the obligation is up to then. Now, obviously, it depends on the results of the consultation and the ultimate decision around implementation or not will be down to then negotiating with a landlord, as we do with a lot of the properties that we hold, either as landlord or as tenants, as to how that progresses. But there is a cost to us. You know, I don't think we can shy away from that. There are leasehold costs and obligations in terms of repair, maintenance, etc., which exist in that current building. And, you know, as Sarah has said, this would mean that it would be in our building. So those are issues that are part of the consideration. They have to be. On the other question, I don't know if Sarah has any information on that one. I suspect the age of that building is probably an issue as well.
Sorry, can you just repeat the second bit of the question?
Yeah, sorry, Sarah, that, you know, we will know there'll be quite a lot of people that want the library to stay on Mostyn Street. And I know the town hall's on Lloyd Street, but it's just around the corner. It's in the same sort of central part of town there. And I would think they would say, well, look, if you want to make savings as far as the library facility being in a community hub, because the town hall is a community hub with the town council there and everything, why don't you put it in the town hall rather than move it to Venue Cymru? So just want to see if that's your answer to that.
So several things. We are not funded for that. We have funding which is for Venue Cymru, and again, you know, some people in the community have been saying, well, why don't you spend that on staffing or going to another building, whatever. We're not able to. That's what the funding is for. So it's an opportunity. But aside from that, it would be moving into a newly extended area of the building, so it provides a brand new facility. So we do have lots of issues at the moment being in an older building, so this would put us in a new building where we're in control of exactly how it looks and how it works. And it also gives us that benefit of bringing cultural teams together so that we can be running things that are interconnected, so that we can put in funding bids for that are joined up funding bids. So I think the benefits of having all those cultural teams together will be really strong, and it's an exciting prospect that we could do a lot of work with that. So there's a number of reasons really why I don't think the town hall would work.
The Chief, exactly.
Yeah, just to be corrected, the break of the lease would be in the option in May 27, so a little bit later than I anticipated, but yeah.
Yeah, so you were right about the TIC. That's 2026.
That's 26. I thought 26 was the relevant date, but yeah. So it's around the same time as Sarah was noting. The timescale on the levelling up spend is incredibly challenging in any event. So there would be some negotiation there around timescales. I would imagine whether we'd need to have, especially given that we've missed you know, the last 6-7 weeks as well, which hasn't helped really. So yeah, so the break on the lease would be May 27.
Okay, Chris. So I've got Councillor Harry online, then Councillor Nigel, then Councillor Emily. Harry.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. And look, first of all, it's really positive to hear that this funding has been identified, and an offer has been perhaps not made on the back of a full business case yet, but tentatively made by UK government. And it's good to hear that the new government is obviously keen to continue with that. I have got a couple of queries, which unsurprisingly will focus around the library and the TIC. But first of all, I just wanted to pick up on a point the Chief Executive made, if I may, specifically about the end of the lease for the library. He said 2027. I understood the lease ran for much longer. 2027 was only a break point, but the lease ordinarily would run much longer, wouldn't it?
But the lease is longer, but there's the option to break in 27. So it's a
Yeah,
that we can break it.
But it
Yeah,
is a longer term lease, isn't it, Ryan?
It is a longer term lease, but there's a break clause there for a purpose. So that can be activated in 27.
Of course, I understand the break clause is there for purpose. I'm sure we wouldn't have agreed to a lease with a break clause for novelty value. But just coming back to the longer term thinking around this, the current lease we have for the library, we entered into, and it was along with some significant changes to the council's accommodation on that site in 2022. That's really only about 2 years ago, perhaps actually slightly less than that. So what thinking has been given before this offer being made about relocating the library? Because to me, this seems to have come, I don't want to say out of thin air, but it does seem to have been sprung upon us at quite short notice. So I'd appreciate some rationale behind this. Why now?
Thanks, Councillor Harry. Yeah, so when that lease was agreed, obviously there weren't any other funding opportunities or potential to move. So this funding coming forwards is certainly, in fact, the Levelling Up bid initially gave us real reason to start thinking about what do we do. And of course, the economic climate is also certainly of an issue. And then we have been experiencing some issues, as I mentioned, the lifts which are now resolved, and other issues with an older building. So we develop, don't we? We look at opportunities all the time. The fact that we have the economic difficulties at the moment means we're having to look at every single area. And the opportunity of funding coming forwards made this something that we could consider as, is this actually a good idea? Is it something that we could work? And as I mentioned earlier, I think it addresses some of the issues that we've got with that building, and also building on the fact that, I mean, we're here in Conway at the moment, we've moved the library into a building that is slightly off the edge of the town, just 2 seconds walk from us here. That has been hugely well received, having a modern facility. It's really well used by young people in particular, and the linking of our library service and our archives in one building, again, really, really successful. So there's a number of factors that have played into us coming to this as a proposal.
Okay, thanks for that. Just a couple more questions, if I may. And I think, apologies, in the report, it touches on both parking at Venue Cymru and the challenges with town centre parking in Llandudno, and also bus routes. And I think it makes some point that Venue Cymru is on a bus route. Now, obviously, under the council's communication and engagement strategy, Llandudno Library is supposed to be part of this hub and spoke model, where effectively it is the primary face-to-face point of contact for residents in and around the Llandudno area. I would have thought a town centre location would have been ideal for that. But my understanding is that, yes, you've got a pay and display car park to the rear of Venue Cymru. You have a pretty large pay and display car park to the rear of the library in the Victoria Centre. You also have Market Street car park nearby, and you also have the car park at Llandudno railway station. There is a bus stop outside Venue Cymru, that's correct, but you have multiple bus stops on Mostyn Street, including one that's served by the 26, which for non-Llandudno members is this council's subsidised bus service to cater for people in Llandudno who can't drive, rely on public transport, and it's to allow them to get around the town. I'm not sure that bus route, which is there for social need, actually serves Venue Cymru. So what consideration have you given to, in terms of that community hub aspect? What consideration have you given to shifting that from the town centre to a more remote location, which in terms of travel facilities actually is deficient, doesn't add anything?
I would say it's not deficient. You know, there is lots of parking around the area, and there are bus stops immediately outside of the building. So I would say that is not deficient. And also it would mean there would be accessible bays for those with blue badges immediately outside the building. And yes, of course, our libraries are a really important resource for people in terms of accessing the council, and also just accessing general support and advice. Our library staff do an amazing job supporting our communities. So I think, you know, that there's parking in town, but often it's difficult to get parking right immediately outside of the car park. And as I mentioned earlier, those parking in the Victoria Centre for the accessible bays, they do have to kind of go all the way downstairs, across and back up again, whereas this would be straight in to the building. I completely acknowledge that, that anything to do with the library is very emotive. They're very, very well loved facilities, and long may that continue. So this is a proposal that will address lots of issues, and I think that it is still very much an easily accessible building. It improves that ground floor access. And also, you know, it's not moving miles away. It's still very much within Llandudno town, and it's accessible from Craigadon, and it's much closer to that, to all of our, to our main residential area, and to our largest local primary school.
Okay, just final point very quickly, and I promise this will be my final point, Leader. Obviously going out to consultation, I think you've said yourself, Leader, that consultation, you know, despite the perhaps desire to relocate the library and the TIC, consultation is important. The feedback will be taken seriously. Let's say consultation comes back with an overwhelming objection from the public to relocating both the library and tourist information centre. What scope do you think there is, perhaps politically, to talk to the new UK government to say, look, we had thought about co-locating the library, the TIC in Venue Cymru. This obviously is not going to be a viable option in terms of our residents. So is there any possibility to redefine the scope of the grant offer to mean that those moves aren't required? Is there any scope to have those conversations politically if the consultation doesn't come back with a positive response?
I think, Harry, it's a typical politician's answer. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. You know, as we've pointed out, there are advantages and there are disadvantages. There are a lot of residents in other areas of the town who it will be more convenient for, and the residents will be less convenient for. It is an emotive subject, and I know we've had previous consultations where there has been widespread dismay about the proposal to move Colwyn Bay Library a couple of 100 yards up the road. So we'll have to wait and see. But there are advantages and there are disadvantages. There are really big consequences if we can't make this bid for finance viable. We have to be realistic about that, and it would be absolutely remiss of me not to point out our financial situation and the impact that will have potentially on our libraries, on their opening hours, all our libraries across the county, the potential impact on our ability to support Venue Cymru, the impact that would have on tourism. You know, we have to point that out, and then it's up to people to make a reasoned decision about that. But I can absolutely assure you, if we're out to consultation and putting council tax up by 10% again, I don't suspect that anyone would support that either. And this is the balance we have. We have to find new ways of doing things. We have to find new ways of delivering services, or we'll be going back out to council tax, taking that off people year in year, because we're not getting funded properly. We're facing no cash increase this year. So if we don't find new ways of delivering stuff, then those stuff will go. And the unpopular decisions are the unpopular decisions. And that is a real difficult balance for us all. So it'd be foolish for me to comment something that hasn't happened yet, but also would be totally remiss of me not to point out the financial situation that we are in and how serious that is. And that all has to be taken in the round. So If it's okay, I'll move on to, there's quite a few people waiting to speak. I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
nobody
fine.
wants to
Thanks,
listen to
Leader.
me anymore. I've got Nigel, Emily, Mandy, David and Cheryl, and then I will have to try and come to some sort of decision. This, Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. And I want to come on onto this with my two hats on, one as an elected member and one as a cabinet member for the economy. As an elected member, I want to thank the officers for having the vision and the confidence to bring this idea forward of bringing literature into the heart of the arts in Llandudno. I welcome the fact that we're going to be hopefully putting this business case forward for the much needed improvements in what is one of Wales's biggest conference and theatre centres. And I'm very proud of the fact that Venue Cymru is that. As an elected member, we're all aware of the difficult situation that all local authorities are in. We're no different, and we're struggling financially. Officers here are offering us an improvement for our local residents, the communities of Llandudno, Cragydon. It's bringing the library closer to them in the middle of the two communities of Llandudno Central and Cragydon, closer to the biggest school, easier access, better access. It sustains the services and it brings forward savings. We're always being told that we need to do more with less, and this is doing more with less. It's a shame, really, that the local elected members don't share that confidence and seem to be stuck in a rut with the old ways that things were done. Town centres are changing, and with my economic head on, I realised, that town centres are changing. Llandudno is evolving. Llandudno is blessed, really, with Mostyn Estates. Mostyn Estates are absolutely fantastic. They have the Midas touch, and you've only got to look at the improvements that they've brought to rundown businesses, derelict properties, the investment that they're putting. And this is a real opportunity for Llandudno to get another investment from Mostyn Estates that will bring something for the 21st century into the town. I'm really excited of what could possibly go in those buildings that we're hoping to vacate. You've only got to look at the plans for the old M&S building. Elected members are talking about the drop in footfall. I don't think a library creates great footfall, but what goes into those empty buildings once we vacate could well do bring much improved footfall for the benefit of the whole town, the whole of the retail centre. So we've got to be brave here. And this is a decision for me. It's very, very easy because it opens up all sorts of economic opportunities for the town. And it's something that I want to fully support with my economic portfolio head on, and something that I want to support as an elected member, as a county councillor, because it sustains our services and it brings savings. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. I've got Councillor Emily, then Councillor Mandy, then David, and then Cheryl, just so you know we all are.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm happy to, I don't think anyone's seconded this yet. I'm happy to second this. This proposal. We talk about transformation a lot and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and this is it. This is transforming services. This is doing things differently. I'm glad you came back in and really stressed the financial situation. And I want to kind of make a plea to to Sarah's team when we're doing that consultation that it's really, really open with what the options are, so people can see them, because the reality of the situation is, we as a council are in a very precarious position financially, which means there will be further cuts being made to services over the next few years, and libraries and the services in general are going to have to find some more cuts. So if we don't do this, then the library service may look very different than what it's in Llandudno than what it is now anyway. And this can be really, I really think this could be seen as a positive thing if it's spoken about in the right way and we bring the public with us, because actually what we're doing is enhancing the offer. It's a bigger, better offer for the town, with an up-to-date library. I mean, I go with my two little ones to lots of libraries because we tour the county of all our library services quite regularly. I do struggle in Llandudno. I've been twice when the lifts aren't working. It's really hard. You've got prams, bags, everything else, potties, everything else that's coming with it. It's really off-putting when you've been once and it closes. And there's other libraries available that aren't like that. So I think we've got to be real about these options and about the sustainability of things moving forward. You know, I'm very happy to second this and to try and use the bid that we have put through to try and improve the offer as a whole, and obviously as well as the stuff that's going on in Venue Cymru. But I think this could be really exciting.
Okay, thanks, Emily. Got Councillor Mandy.
Thanks, Leader. I just really wanted to come along just because I did get me report back to you, and I think I just missed your cut-off line, didn't I? So I do apologise about that. But I just really wanted to note it, just to say that obviously I do welcome any investment that, you know, comes into, you know, our towns, counties, you know, because that investment is, you know, important. However, I do have major concerns, you know, for our high street as well. And that's about obviously the library and the tourist information centre being moved away from there. There are obviously lots of pros, you know, regarding this, which you've said. It covers other sides of, you know, the town and what have you, closest to schools and all that. But it also does also have that negative impact as well. I feel we also need to be supporting those businesses on our high street, you know, who have the businesses in close proximity, because running a business is not easy, and we only have to see, you know, the vacant building that we've got, you know, in the Marks and Spencers, how that has had a negative impact, you know, on the footfall. So that is my main concern with that. Obviously, we do need to be doing all we can to encourage people to our high streets up and down, you know, the country. You've only got to look at different areas, you know, and what have you, and, you know, look at Bangor, you know, as well. I want to ensure that our high streets stay vibrant. You know, we are one of the biggest towns where, you know, we're getting, you know, tourists in and what have you. And those tourists tend to expect, you know, the tourist information, you know, in the main sort of like high streets. You have covered off, you know, different things of how you'll deal with that with the digital information boards and what have you. But all I'd actually say to any of our residents is I'll encourage you to take time to fill out that consultation when it does come out. And I'd be happy to hear anyone's views on the proposal, because, as I said, there are, you know, pros and cons with this, but I just do fear a little bit, you know, with the high street. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mandy. Councillor David, online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a bit concerned about the promotion in this of people getting to the new library by car. Yeah, and other car parks that we actually have a policy of, what is it, net zero by 2030. But everything when we're moving things away from the centre, we're looking for people to use cars. So that's really my sort of criticism. The buses don't go in front of Venue Cymru. So they go at the back. So disabled people or elderly people would have to walk across the car park if they're arriving by bus. Obviously, it's sad that we're not going to have the library in the centre of Llandudno. I've used it many times over the years, and you know it's the central point. Another question is, I know that when Coed Petler was built, a lot of the council offices that were in the town hall moved out. Is the spare capacity there? I think Chris Kate was mentioning earlier on. That would be an ideal location if we can't have it where it is at the moment. I think in the town hall to have the library and to have the tourist information. Would that be feasible? Perhaps someone could answer that. Thank you.
Glad to see your support for environmental issues and carbon reduction, David. Aaron, do you want to take that one?
Yes, on the car usage, I don't agree with you. this proposal is moving the library closer to population centres, closer to residents. So if anything, it will be easier to walk to the library, which is only a good thing.
In terms of the town hall, I think, did we answer that before? Yeah, that was answered before, wasn't it? So, okay, so we'll move on to Councillor Cheryl, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. One quick question, please. I'm concerned about the blue badges. I take it any applicants of blue badges will now have to go to venue. There's a cost to that in terms of parking and things like that, and I'm concerned that it's off the beaten track for the applicants of that. And my second one was incidental. It was going on from what Councillor Harry touched on before. When is the future of Llandudno Town Hall going to be discussed? Thank you.
So I think the second one's off agenda, and we'll obviously deal with that at another time. Cheryl, do you want to take the first part? Sir?
Yes. So there will be more very close by accessible bays for those who already have a blue badge if they're renewing. If people are getting their new blue badge and they want to deal with somebody in person, there will be some free bays for short waiting. So they'll be able to access those, and there is lots of free parking very close by, but I'm assuming if somebody's going in for a blue badge, it might be that it's a friend or relative that's going in for it. And of course, we also have lots and lots of applicants online, so we can encourage that. But as Aaron mentioned, this will put the library much closer to our population area in Llandudno, so actually is nearer to the population by moving it into Venue Cymru. Diolch.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Well, we've had a good debate. It is a contentious issue. There are pros and cons, but I think what we're being asked to do today is Cabinet support the broad proposals for Venue Cymru. Futures project approves that the council submits a business case to access £10 million, which has been identified by UK government, and that we approve a public consultation regarding the possibility of moving the library area into the extended foyer areas. So that's the decision that we're being asked to make today. There's clearly going to be a lot of further decisions down the line and further work that's going to be needed to be done on this, members. But we've had a proposer, Councillor Aaron, Councillor Emily, second it. Can we show we're in favour of moving on with the next stage, members? Okay, thank you. So the next agenda item 8.1 is Director of Social Care's annual report. It's on pages 277 to 380. So who's going to start with this? Penny, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So this is Director of Social Services annual report for 2023 to 2024. This report demonstrates improvements in providing services to people who access all services. The report concentrates on areas of new development and revisits services that were developed following on from feedback from all service users. Under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, Wales 2014, there is a statutory obligation on the Director of Social Service to publish an annual report. The guidance of the report has been amended by Welsh Government in 23-24. The report and reporting processes is integral for planning, scrutiny and performance improvement actions that involve all services offered to our residents. The emphasis is on self-assessment and performance, which has to include what has been achieved and carried out successfully and what are the improvements that result from action plans. Critical to the foundation of this report is the feedback from service users, their voice, the public and stakeholders. The report outlines actions planned and taken to achieve improvements and progresses that have been made against improvement priorities identified in the previous year. The foundation of the new performance and improvement framework are 8 quality standards that represent people's well-being under the Social Services Act. Each section provides an excellent insight into how these services have been shaped and developed and further improved to meet our diverse communities. The report went to Health and Social Care Scrutiny the 17th of July, where it was discussed by members of the committee with officers present to answer any items that needed further clarification. As Cabinet Member for Adults and Community, I would like to thank all members of the huge social care team who provide critical services for all our residents in extremely challenging and difficult times. All staff involved in delivery of any service that sits within social care demonstrate empathy, and they always go the extra mile in trying to help an individual within the community. I would welcome any comments to the social care annual report, and I note that Kat and Jenny, as always, are here to be present if there's any questions I can't answer. So it's always thankful that you're there. And Steph and Anis. I'm not going to leave you out, Anis. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Penny. Councillor Liz.
I can only concur with what Councillor Penny says about the service. This is an easy to read document, and that's what we need. People out there are to be able to understand what we are trying to achieve within social care. It is an uphill struggle to try to do more with less, and I compliment the service for their ingenious ways in the way they're attempting to still deliver a quality service to our communities in the county. And this report this year focuses on inclusion and sets out its aim to embrace inclusivity, and that the service social care provides the people are accessible and fair to everyone involved. They continue to ensure to focus efforts on delivering the right services are provided by the right people and at the right time, and endeavour to have the right resources and capacity to meet the statutory duties set out. So I thank the service very much indeed for all the work that goes on a daily basis. Thank you very much. Am I allowed to second or the report, or does that have to go to a... I will second the report, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're more than welcome to second it. I've got Councillor David online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My concerns are about the lack of daycare facilities, particularly for people with dementia that are being looked after by family. And those families do deserve a break. I know we do have a very limited capacity at Clissellian, but it's just not meeting the need. And I think there is a need out there. And if we've seen the recent reports, more and more people, sadly, are being diagnosed with dementia. You know, and in most of the cases, it's family members, and it's particularly elderly family members that are having to look after them 24/7. I mean, having the provision of day centres would make the world of difference to people to have that break that they're not getting, that respite. So they're my concerns, really. It's an area really that we seem to be in decline. I think there is one daycare centre. It's a private one in Colwyn Bay, but obviously hasn't got the capacity to serve the whole county. So they're my sort of criticisms, really, that we need to look more into daycare centres, particularly for disabled people, particularly for people that have got dementia, where elderly family members are having to look after them 24/7. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, David. Councillor Penny, then Liz.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Councillor David, for that observation. Yes, dementia, as we all had contact with, we all know somebody who's got it or has it or has just had an early diagnosis. It's a horrible illness, and it's one where you lose the person you look after or love twice, I always think. In an ideal world, if we had lots of money, then yes, we would like lots more resources. Llanfyddechan was actually chosen by Welsh Government because it fitted the socio-economic group to look at provisions for dementia, onset, all sorts of issues surrounding dementia. And we carried out consultation with all our residents. We went to different activities. The officers were fantastic. They gave up Sundays, Saturdays to come along to see. So once that data has been collected, hopefully there will be a provision where the community could offer something. It's not a finance, it's not money being thrown at it. It's a way of looking how community involvement can help individuals with dementia. And I've got to mention the library here. The resources they have got for people with dementia are absolutely incredible. Memory books, sensory books, small individual chats, Dementia Friends, Llanfyddechan Dementia Friends Society, the shops are becoming dementia friendly. So yes, Councillor Dave, I completely agree, but it's something that the community has got to look at current widespread usage and what can actually be done to help in line with our care provision. Thank you.
Okay, Liz, did you want to comment on that?
You mentioned there, Councillor, that criticism. I don't think the word criticism is what should be used here, is to highlight that that dementia, there is a need, that we all know we have a need to improve on services for dementia. We meet people on a daily basis out on the street who know somebody who has dementia. And it is something that we all together have to look at, because this is something now in society that we haven't faced like we are facing today. And we all have to think how together we can help to improve service delivery here. Thank you.
Thanks. I've got Aaron and then Julie.
Yeah, just quickly want to just say thank you for everything that you do. Obviously, this report comes to us every year, and every time I read it, I go, "Wow, we do that as well." It's incredible. Social care is, you know, the label doesn't do it justice. Really, you do so much. I just want to mention the Family Centre in Llanws as well. The officers there do fantastic work, and I'm pleased that we've now acquired that building. So I look forward to seeing some improvements on that building and protect the future of the Family Centre in Llanws. Diolch.
Diolch, Aaron. Julie.
Yeah, Aaron's stolen my thunder there, really. It's amazing when you look at the breadth of work that takes place in social care. You know, I think people just think it's just, you know, one or two things. It's maybe children looked after and care of the elderly. But my goodness, you know, you're talking about care leavers, people who care. You have young carers. You have people of all ages that care. That there's just so much that goes on. The Vulnerable People Service, you know, we're all aware that people of all ages, children in particular, certainly from my perspective, mental health issues are on the rise. That transition from CAMHS into the community mental health team, you know, fostering, adoption. I mean, all of this, there's just so much work that takes place, and typically with our more vulnerable families, you know, and reading this report, the amazing work you were hearing feedback from residents talking about a fantastic service, fantastic staff. Hearing terms like that when we're talking about supporting some of our most vulnerable families is an absolute credit to everybody really that works within Conway, to Jenny and to the team across everywhere. It's amazing, and I'm so appreciative. And I know that obviously we talk about the reduction in funding, so this is all happening with that reduction in funding. With staffing levels sometimes hard to replace staff, people are going over and above constantly, and I just think it's a massive credit to Conway and to the team that we're in a position to look at a report like this and hear such positive words, and also to recognise areas of improvement and to acknowledge those and the work that's going on to address those. So I just wanted to say thank you. Really, it's amazing, and it helps certainly me, and I know so many people sleep better at night to know that we have the team across the whole of social services out there every day doing the job and helping the people who need that support. So yeah, just massive thanks. Diolch.
Okay. Any other observations, members? No, clearly, I don't think I can better that, but I absolutely 100% agree that it inspires me what you guys do. Job can be difficult at times, but seeing how important it is, well, and the work that you do keeps us all going, I think, through difficult times. And it is difficult times. Dealing with the ageing population, as Councillor Davis said, brings more and more challenges. In Conway, it's 27%, second highest in Wales. So that brings its own unique set of challenges. And in difficult times, you guys continue to do absolutely amazing work. So we're all incredibly proud of that. But Kat, did you recommend?
I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Carr's point about the dementia work. He's right, we don't provide dementia support services through day services, but we do provide dementia support services. We're part of the regional dementia support service, and that is mapped to the dementia pathway. So it's pre-diagnosis, during diagnosis and post-diagnosis support. So we have that support in the community, and part of what Councillor Penny was explaining is part of that dementia support. So it's dementia cafes, it's respite support in people's homes. So we don't do it through daycare. We actually provide that respite support for people on a one-to-one basis in their community, and we contract that out with a provider. So we do actually support people in the community with a dementia, either pre-diagnosis, during diagnosis or post-diagnosis. So it is increasing, Councillor Carr, as you say, and that support will be needed. But just to reassure you, we do have that dementia support service in place for people.
Thanks for that. So members, we've had a proposer and a seconder. Can we show for in favour of accepting the report? Wonderful, thank you. So we'll move on to part 2, which is His Majesty's, apologies, Inspector of Probation's inspection, joint inspection of Conwy and Denbighshire Youth Justice Service, and that's on pages 381 to 435. So Councillor Liz, you want to take us through that report?
Thank you. Before I go into the report, I'd just like to welcome Jenny Williams, Strategic Director of Social Care and Education, and Annis Gray, Service Manager with the Youth Justice Service, and Steph, Head of Children, Families and Safeguarding. And I'm indebted to their support that I get on a daily basis. So this report I bring before you today is in regard to the Conwy and Denbighshire Youth Justice Joint Inspection, which was undertaken during a 2-week fieldwork inspection held from the 15th to the 19th of January 2024 and then 29th to the 2nd of February. It was undertaken at short notice, ensuring that the YJS was inspected as is without the opportunity for undue preparation. I would like to thank Jenny Williams, our Strategic Director of Social Care and Education, for her diligence and leadership approach in her chairmanship to the Youth Justice Board, and whom has requested this report come before elected members. I'd also like to thank very much Annis Gray Fraser as Service Manager and her team for their collaborative approach to ensuring the Youth Justice Service is resilient and effective in working alongside colleagues from Denbighshire County Council and Health Board as partners of this multidisciplinary management board, and also Steph Robbins as the Head of Children and Families and Safeguarding. So the inspection was HMI probation led, but during the second week, HMIP inspectors were joined by Care Inspectorate Wales, Health Inspectorate Wales, His Majesty's Inspectorate of Police, Fire and Rescue, and Estyn, and they all contributed to the inspection judgment. This was the first joint inspection of a youth justice service in Wales for a number of years, and the last given that the inspection framework within HMIP is changing to a new inspection framework at the end of this year. So during the first week, a team of inspectors from HMI Probation assessed the quality of practice in the representative sample of statutory cases that had been running for past 12 months. For the second week, the HMIP inspectors were joined by inspectors from partner inspectorates to explore and further understand the findings from the first week and to assess the quality of the partnership and the specific role of partners in delivering intervention within their respective agencies to meet the needs of children and young people within the Youth Justice Service in Conwy and Denbighshire. So you can see this was quite an inspection. It is important to note when the inspection refer to aspects of governance, leadership, management, they refer to the arrangements in place within the wider partnership, not internal to the YJS service. The criteria for the theme provides a benchmark for the inspectors in terms of the governance and strategic leadership found across the management board and beyond. This is how the inspectors identified how well strategic partners work together effectively to drive quality and to reduce reoffending, not only across YJS provision, but also across other services within the YJS partnership that provide services for young people who offend or who are likely to offend. The inspection team expect to find good local strategic understanding and focus on reducing offending and reoffending across all disciplines. It is against this inspection criteria that the inspectors came to the 7 recommendations within the report. Firstly, the Conwy and Denbighshire Management Board should undertake a detailed needs analysis to inform the board and partnership of the services that need to be provided within the YJS. Secondly, make sure that there are effective information sharing agreements with the virtual school so that children can access services without delay. Thirdly, monitor children's access to partnership services and address any barriers in a timely manner. And fourthly, the heads of children's services should make sure services contribute effectively to keeping YJS children and young people safe and well by providing representation at the out-of-court decision-making panel, training social workers to understand their roles and responsibilities when co-working cases with YJS, and contributing to effective joint assessment and planning. And so that I have a better experience of what happens at court, I have asked if I can attend a court session, and Anest has arranged that for me. Fifthly, Betsy Cadwallader, the Health Board, should provide expedited access to health services for YJS children, which as a minimum should include speech, language and communication services, physical and sexual health services, and emotional and mental health services. And sixthly, the National Probation Service should provide a mandated probation worker for the YJS and make interim arrangements to support YJS staff with risk management until the vacancy can be filled. And finally, the seventh is Careers Wales should provide adequate and accessible post-16 information, advice and guidance to all children in the YJS who require it. So an improvement plan has been agreed and members will have had the opportunity to read this. The plan is very comprehensive, that not only responds to the recommendations and findings within the inspection, but also merges some of the aspirational developments required to achieve an outstanding service. And I can assure you this is the aim, as I shared at scrutiny with you last week. The service already had an action plan in place following a management board developmental day held in October 2023, facilitated by the Youth Justice Board, and this is also merged into the plan. The service and the management board and myself were fully aware of the challenges and issues facing the delivery of services, given the significant staffing and operational challenges the service had faced over 21 months, and in that sense, there were no shocks. So it is important to note here that the inspectors commended the interim managers within the operational service and commended them on their work and recognised the improvements already implemented and were assured with their understanding and recognition of the areas of challenge. So it is clear that the improvement plan focuses on strengthening the Youth Justice Management Board governance, leadership and partnership working arrangements to ensure that the Youth Justice Service is able to access responsive and timely services to support statutory functions to address and meet the needs of children and young people and protecting the public. The plan, therefore, is broken down into the areas of governance, leadership, prevention, victim work, and disproportionality. Much of the work has commenced with some actions completed already, e.g. the appointment of a new service manager, Alice Gray-Fraser, review of the board membership, creation of a new management structure, and joint working arrangements. There are ongoing challenges in terms of health and probation and their ability to meet their statutory function and responsibilities. A Youth Justice Operational Board has been set up with representatives of all the partner agencies to oversee the delivery of the Youth Justice Improvement Plan and operational practice to further monitor and ensure that improvement is delivered by all. As a member of the Youth Justice Board, the overarching priority is to continue to evaluate the effectiveness of the service and to continue to steer improvement through promoting good practice and providing targeted support. I am confident that moving forward, the aims of the board will be fulfilled in its responsibility to ensure children and young people have the right interventions at the right time and with the right partner services who sit on the board. Saliently, what is clear is that this improvement plan is dependent on all statutory partners that are represented within the multidisciplinary service working together to ensure that they fulfil their statutory and partnership responsibilities. So I now ask that Cabinet colleagues see the recommendations of this report on page 382 and that the Conwy and Denbighshire Management Board and Inspection Probation the inspection report, Appendix 1 of the report, be approved and information contained within His Majesty's Inspectors of Probation Inspection, HMIP, Joint Inspection Report of Conwy and Denbighshire Youth Justice Service be noted. And I propose that we approve and support this recommendation, please.
Okay, thank you, Liz, for giving us such a detailed walk through that report. I'd just like to bring in the Chief Executive to begin with.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, and thank you, Liz, for the, as the leader said, the comprehensive presentation on the report. I just want to make a few things clear in terms of how seriously we're taking the report. So, as you know, it went to scrutiny last week. It's come to Cabinet this week. This wouldn't be the usual course of action. So I think that shows how seriously we take the report. It was a comprehensive inspection. And, you know, it was really intense for that period of time. But also I'd like to say that we completely accept the findings and, you know, I accept responsibility for the report. I know the action plan is comprehensive as well, and we're working through that. And to be fair, as you say, Liz, a lot of these issues had already been identified, and the timing of the inspection brought these things to the fore, I guess. I would like to reiterate that this is a partnership that we're working with. So it's a partnership with Denbighshire, and they are fully on board, as you can imagine, with what you've said in your presentation, Liz. And I know, having spoke to the Chief Executive of Denbighshire, he's in exactly the same place as me in respect of the report. I have complete faith in the team, and which is recognised in the report. You know, the leadership within that team, and I'd also like to share my thanks with Jenny, Steph, Ernest, and the whole team really around how they're trying to turn this round, because it's a big task. However, we are really reliant on our partners in order to deliver the improvements we want. We had a very early meeting this morning with our colleagues from Health, including the Chief Executive of Health. This is, I think, the third meeting we've had since the inspection, which shows, I think, how seriously we're taking it, and we're relaying our need for that access into the health service generally. I think there are certain aspects, as you've mentioned, Liz, that there are specific issues that we have issues with, but actually it's that wider access to health which is a concern, and we will now have regular meetings and updates as to progress in that front. And also, you know, I know Jenny is also with our colleagues in probation has also had quite significant exchanges of correspondence and meetings. So it's a journey we're on. As you say, we also had a meeting with the Chief Inspector, which is not usual, but I think I'm pretty safe to say that they were happy with the progress we've made, but were there for us if we needed them in terms of you know, accessing them to get to some of our partners, because clearly we want to work in partnership, and we're hopeful that we will get there, because I think there is will on all sides to move things forward. But yeah, I just try to reiterate my thanks really, and I personally take responsibility for this report. So diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Rain. clearly as elected leader, I took full responsibility for this report as well. I agree 100% with what Reen's covered. I don't propose to go over it again. I think it's important to look a bit further than just beyond Comey and Denbighshire. I think we can get in a bit of a goldfish bowl sometimes with what we're doing and what we're not doing and what we're delivering. So I always like to look at a wider level. And I'd just like to read you verbatim. It's a statement, well, it's a written piece by Keith Fraser, who's chair of the Youth Justice Board. It's the Youth Justice Board strategy for 24 to 27. So if you just bear with me, the overwhelming majority of the children who come through the youth justice system over the past 3 years have complex backgrounds and needs. This is especially so for those sentenced to custody, and whilst a reduction in the number of children being held in custody is welcome, the patterns of violence, self-harm and trauma that are seen amongst children in these settings are unacceptable. It must also be recognised that the youth justice system does not exist in a vacuum, and that socioeconomic circumstances profoundly influence the lives and opportunities of children across the country. We know that many of the children who come into contact with the justice system are from most deprived communities, where the experience of a cost of living crisis has created conditions where children are more likely to engage in violence. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has also caused significant disruption in the lives of children, as their access to education and other services was disrupted for a protracted period. The latest data shows that 22.3% of children were persistently absent during the 22-23 academic year, which is double the equivalent figure for 18-19, and that will have a considerable impact on their social development and commitment to learning. Lastly, for the public services charged with delivering youth justice, significant budgetary pressures remain, and there will be difficult decisions about what and how services can do or cannot be delivered. This is compounded by changes in the job market in the youth justice sector, increased mobility of employees and competition for skilled workers, which makes it a challenge to recruit and retain the best staff. So clearly, as the Chief Executive said, we've accepted all the recommendations. We've put a really clear strategy as to how we're going to improve this service. But I just wanted to make a point that this is not just unique to us. This is a common problem across the country. It will need better partnership work and it'll need better engagement. I think the first piece about the COVID response was very clear about how hollowing out lots of services and public services has that impacts on our deliver. But again, as we've seen from the previous report, our social care staff do find solutions and they will find solutions to this. But the more stretched you are and the more areas there are of concern, and that is always going to be an ongoing problem unless the services that they provided are fully funded and we can attract and retain staff that we need. But I'm very happy to second the recommendations because there's a clear pathway that we will move this from a service that needs improvement to one that doesn't. So thank you all for your work on this, and I'm more than happy to open up. I've got Councillor Julie and then any other questions or comments.
Thank you, Leader. And yeah, I mean, obviously, we've got a very good action plan here in order to address the plan going forward. I just wanted to comment. I mean, as you've touched on there, Leader, there's increased demand and it really is significant. And I can't see that changing anytime soon. In fact, I think the likelihood is that will continue to grow. And I think when we make decisions, it's important that we acknowledge that it has an impact, whether that's reducing budgets. And I know there have been particular issues in terms of staffing, for a length of time, but I just wanted to say from a personal perspective, so I've come into contact with the Youth Justice Service in my role. I hold a multi-agency meeting and have done in some areas, but in one specific area I hold a multi-agency meeting. And I just have to say how impressive it is to see that partnership working when it works. And I guess, you know, you've touched on in the issue around health, and obviously you're attempting to address that, and health aren't actually part of this multi-agency meeting, but with youth service, with education, with North Wales Police, it's fantastic to see how everybody knows these kids and how they work so closely together and have an understanding of where they are in the process, whether that's because they're about to be in court or they're out of court or they're back from, and it just really works well. And I feel so impressed and proud of the team after I chair that meeting, thinking, gosh, they really do understand. So I don't want people to read this and think, you know, there's an action plan in place because it's really not working. That's because there are areas and there are staffing issues and things that need to improve, and health is definitely a big part of that. But I want people to realise that actually what I've seen firsthand, I know is having a big impact on some of our more vulnerable people that you touched on, Leader, when you mentioned, you know, working with the families, working with these young people, finding alternative ways of them channeling, whether it's the aggression or whatever it is, so that their outcomes aren't going to be what they could have been. So I think it's really important that we also address today just how positive I've seen the team work and how I know they work with families. But I also want to go back to the health, and I'm sorry that I missed the scrutiny meeting because I know we had representative from health here. I do want to highlight 3.8 that the inspectorate said that they were significantly concerned about the lack of resources and partnership focus provided to the Youth Justice Service to support its work, particularly the long-standing failure of the health board to provide any of the necessary health services, in particular to the vulnerable group of children that the Youth Justice serve. It is important, and it's great that conversations are being had and that there's positive talk taking place. But so many times over the years, we have these conversations and they lead nowhere, and that can't continue to happen. We really need this to be addressed. If we're going to have somebody seconded to the department that's suggested here, we can't then have them not be there sometimes, then be pulled back for certain things. It needs to be really embedded. It needs to be really part of this, because without that support, because, you know, we're talking about the support of CAMHS, we're talking about, you know, the long waiting list that we are all aware of. There needs to be a change for these kids because their life chances are not good enough if they don't get that support, especially that early support. So that team that I was talking about, that multi-agency approach, to have health and CAMHS part of that as well, working with the families, finding ways of avoiding them then being in this cycle, not just for whilst they're young, but for the rest of their lives. Health can really help us break that cycle, along with the great work that Youth Justice are doing, that the Youth Service, that social services are doing. It really has to be collaborative. So whether we make that a proposal today, Leader, I'd kind of throw back to you or to Councillor Liz, whether we actually make a proposal around health today or whether we keep it to our action plan. I don't know, but I guess doing this for the number of years that I've done it, we've had so many times where we have conversations with health and we think, oh, okay, actually, I think something's going to change. And then 6 months later, 12 months later, we're back in the same situation. You know, personally, I think we should have an additional recommendation here that highlights that in some way. But yeah, Leader, I'll throw that back to you to see what you think around that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the team. This is a really difficult area with some of our most vulnerable young people, and they do a fantastic job. And we're, you know, as it says here, we're addressing those things around the courts, around staffing, around everything else. And yeah, I just want people out there to be aware that what I've seen firsthand is really quite exceptional in many instances. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Liz, did you want to come in?
I think, you know, we are challenged by the inspectors that we have to be working with health, or health have to be working with us. And so I asked Jenny, I would like your comment on that, please, because I think we are working with health. An example, both yourself and Trina this morning, we'll be continuing to have those meetings with health. And you do have a good relationship, do you not, with Alison, the Assistant Director of Children's Services and CAMHS. So I'd just like, Jenny, for you to share your thoughts on that, please.
Bore da pawb, diolch fawr. I think I really welcome everybody's support and comments. We also fully expect, you know, challenge, and we'll be at Denbighshire's Governance and Audit tomorrow as well. I think it's a really tricky one. I think that there might be merit in having a strengthening recommendation. I have to say I was a little, I think it was an opportunity missed not to have challenged or asked the health representative at scrutiny, because obviously we'd ask for that attendance because we knew that the recommendation was there. And I know we have very good, long-standing, it's not a personal issue, is it? We have good working relationships, but ultimately we are accountable, as hence my comments at scrutiny and others today. So there might be merit. I'm sure other members might want to discuss that. I think you're right, Councillor Liz. We've been persistently raising the issue actually for two years in respect of the Health Board's contribution, and we've had the exact sort of words you mentioned about conversations happen, but do we see the action? Trin Anest and I were just reflecting after the meeting this morning. The Health Board's chief exec is, she is absolutely determined that we will see action, and we're going to meet in another couple of months. But it has, as Anest pointed out this morning, taken 7 months to get to the point of having one day a week in terms of that presence, and it needs to be far more. So, as ever, we've been here many times, haven't we? Of course, we're in the business of sort of that human interaction, and working relationships is about everything we do. But there has to be some point of enough is enough, I guess. I think Trin and I were also discussing, well, what happens next? Where do we go? Is it a Welsh Government escalation? HIW, we're part of that inspection team. We were advised they were going to issue an immediate notice within the week to the Health Board. We haven't seen that. So that is disappointing, and the Health Board haven't received anything aside from the inspection report before you today. I think it for me, we'll keep having the conversations. Anything that strengthens accountability, I would welcome. Thank you.
So I think it'd be remiss of us not to add an amendment, because clearly we want a record of discussion that we've had and what we concluded. Julie, do you want to put amendment forward and see if it's...
Yeah, so can I propose then, looking at the wording of 3.8, that we hold the Health Board to account in terms of providing the necessary health services to the Youth Justice Service, children accessing Youth Justice Service. I think because that's come from the Inspectorate, that wording around their concerns around the lack of that, I think it makes sense to use that as the wording for a proposal. So, and ask perhaps that they update us, whether in 3 months or 6 months, with what changes they've made in order to address the concerns the Inspectorate raised. So I'd say 3 months really in the short term, and then if they want to say they haven't done anything, then that's on them. But where that comes back to, I appreciate whether it comes back to Cabinet but there needs to be, because I think if we don't have a timescale in place, then it will just run and run. I think they need to take urgent action on this, and I think it's clear from the report, it's clear from the Inspectorate that that's what they expect. So if they haven't issued anything, then let's do it ourselves.
Okay, can I just bring the Chief Exec in then? I'll need to go back to Liz.
Yeah, I'd welcome a strong steer from Cabinet. It does help both Jenny and myself in terms of the discussions we have, and I'm sure our colleagues in Denbighshire would feel exactly the same. So would welcome that. We're hoping to get some concrete proposals through in the next 8 weeks, so that will help. We're also, I'll just remind members of other discussions that are going on with health at the moment in terms of bringing them for scrutiny within the local authority. So plans are afoot, I think, to get them to a session before a council meeting, but also to have them regularly, at least annually, if not 6 months, before scrutiny. So that could encompass when they bring an update to the relevant scrutiny committee, that these issues are brought at that time as well, so we can bring them all together at that point. But I would welcome a recommendation. I think it does help us in our discussions.
Okay, I'll just go back. I know I've got a few people ready waiting to ask questions. Liz, are you happy to accept that amendment because you proposed that? Okay, do you want to put your mic on first?
Yes, but I'd just like to mention something else as well. Jenny made reference to Welsh Government. I think I'm more than happy to write to Eluned Morgan, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, because we keep saying we've been here before, and yet there's still no change. And I think I personally would like to write on our behalf, please.
I think as portfolio holder, you're obviously, that's in your power to do that, but just you're happy to accept the amendment as suggested by Councillor Julie. Okay, so the proposed sector is fine. I've got a few more questions and we can hopefully look to take that to a vote. I've got Councillor David, Councillor Paul, and then Councillor Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I read the report. I was quite shocked. It's a very damning report, and obviously we do need to have improvements, and we've got to work on this. So, I'll support our staff and also the other components that make up the Youth Justice Board. To improve, we do really need to improve, and I think we need to come back in 6 months' time and say, look, we have changed. We've actually put policies and practices in place so that we can go back and look at the things that went wrong and ensure the public that things are not going to go wrong in the future. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Jenny. I was at Scrutiny Committee. I found it a difficult experience. Apologise to Jenny for not questioning and challenging the health representative. I'll take responsibility for not doing that. But I did get myself in very deep water with my political colleagues for questioning and challenging them. My only proposal, which I would like, if it can be accepted, I don't know the procedure here, is that a clear strategy is prepared for formalising partnership and engagement with local ward councillors. And the reason I ask this is, in 2 years and a bit that I've been a councillor, I found it deeply, deeply frustrating trying to speak to people about the issues in my area. Tremendous turnover of staff, and this includes police. It is just very deeply frustrating when residents are coming to you with their concerns and tracking things down. And I think a note Julie was saying that she has formal meetings locally. I think that needs to be across the county. And I would ask, one of the first items on that agenda, because it's a big concern locally, there's lots of concerns locally, is this issue of the trading and use of ketamine by children
Paul,
locally.
sorry, I know you've voiced these concerns before, and we're more than happy to take on suggestions. You're not a member of this committee, so you can't really make suggestions as such. But I don't want to go into specific detail about specific things. I think it's more about us approving this plan and looking to move forward. But Julie, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just the multi-agency meeting I spoke of is not local to me. It's not a ward issue. It was an issue that was relevant to the police and to youth justice, that was a specific issue within a community. And when you raised issues in your community, we organised a multi-agency meeting for your community as well, that included the police, that included youth justice, youth service. So that was discussed and addressed, and there was not the level of concern that certainly you raised at the time, Paul, but that was done. It's not something that will be done for every ward within the council. It's something that is done if there's concerns raised, because obviously officers have a lot of work to do in their day job, and they can't dedicate time to suddenly starting to do something in every ward. So I just wanted to highlight that the multi-agency meetings are purely there for as and when there is actually a real issue that has to be addressed.
But I was in hospital with an appendicitis when that meeting was held, and I think those sort of meetings need to happen on a more formal, regular
Paul,
basis.
this isn't really the arena to say that. Just you know, I'm happy to have this conversation outside the meeting. I did
But
attend.
every time I raise these issues, I'm told
But
these matters.
again, this is a cabinet meeting. It's not the right place to discuss this. I did attend that meeting, and there were no concerns raised. So, as a fellow board member, I was content with that. You know, we can argue all day long about this, but we're here to look at the overarching strategy in response to this report. So I don't think we can go into that kind of level of detail. I've got Councillor Sherrill online.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm very pleased that the partnership nature of this service has been expanded on and acknowledged today, as I was really uncomfortable that it was a singular Conway issue at scrutiny last week and there was no interrogation of the health representative. The Betsy service is woefully inadequate, as we all know, and obviously the probation service is on its knees. I'd like to know what the Betsy CEO actually offered this morning in terms of service improvement. As Liz says, as Julie says, we've been there so many times before. Weasel words and, oh yes, it's all going to be fine. And it really isn't. I agree with what Jenny said. There needs to be a real escalation of this. And I'd also, when I've had the answer to that, I'd like to thank Jenny for her leadership and the way she took responsibility, particularly for this in scrutiny, when of course it's a multi-agency problem and needs tackling as such. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Again, I don't think that is an agenda item. I appreciate your concerns, but I don't think it would be appropriate to ask our senior officers what exactly was said at this morning's meeting. We've got an amendment to ask Health to engage more. We've all made our concerns about that loud and clear. So if there's no other questions in the chamber, we've had a proposer and a seconder for the original recommendation plus the amendment. Can we show for in favour of supporting that, members? Okay, thank you very much. So agenda item 9, exempt items, Local Government Act 1972, section 109, schedule 12A, access to information. To consider passing a resolution under the provisions of section 100A brackets 4 of the above act to exclude the public and press from the meeting for the following item, as it is likely that if present there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 12 of part 4 of schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. So can somebody propose we go into private session? Councillor Penny, Jeff, can we show we're all in favour, members? Okay, so we'll just take a minute to make sure we're in private session. Thank you.